Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of all combat sports, the legend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
Good. Not as good as you, but, what was the car company, Avis or Hertz? We try harder. Which one was it? It was remember Hertz and Avis, they had the competition. One was there first, and we said,
yes,
we're Avis. We try harder.
I'm going to guess it was Avis. Yeah.
I try harder. But, no, I mean, I don't have a haircut styled up like yours every week, and
I flew all the way to Los Angeles for this haircut. Shout out to Brandon Craven, Westside Barber Company.
Yeah, I mean, someday I dream of being at your status where I can fly around to get haircuts, just to get a haircut and groomed up a little bit, and No, this past week we were doing some important stuff with the charity foundation, the Dr. Atlas Foundation. Every year at Christmas time, we hand out toys. We handed out 7,000 toys to kids that might not get a Christmas present, believe it or not, in this great country on that holiday. So we go to all the places we should go to where the need is greater. Title I schools in New York, that's basically means a family making less than $35,000 a year. But so we go to those schools and wherever the areas are, if it's a shelter, hospital, whatever. And I don't go to all of them. I go to a few of them where we bring Santa Claus. The rest of them, we just have them pick up their toys and distribute them. But for the kids in the schools, I want them to see Santa Claus, So I picked the fattest guy on my committee, and he becomes Santa Claus, I have all of my volunteers around me because I pride ourselves that we don't spend money on administrative costs like some places do. We spend it on the people, on the cases for the most part.
By the way, Teddy, I know that your board now is going to be like, God, please, my goal for the year is to not get the call to be Santa Claus.
No, well, they're all on diets, and because they don't want to get that call. But I got good people.
That's the motivation.
Yeah, I got all good people around me. I'm blessed. And so we handed out the toys, and it's beautiful to see these kids because we do from pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, second, third. We do it for the whole school, and it's refreshing. Just again, I got my grandchildren, so I see it. But again, to see the purity, the innocence of children, it reminds us of it just. I guess I've said it before. It's just a reminder of how, first of all, how blessed we are to have kids and to have healthy kids if we are blessed to have them. And just how kids, the purity of a kid is, the greatness of a kid is that they're not cluttered with all the crap that we get cluttered with as we get older. It's just, you're good to them, they're good to you. They want goodness. They just want someone to spend time with them and be good. And you know what? We're all in a position to do that. No matter what our salaries are or aren't, we're all in a position to do that. To do that one thing. We really are, if we think about it. But anyway, I'll tell you one story. About a kid. And this is the one I love to tell. It was a few years ago, to be straight about it. It was a few years. We've been doing this 27 years. So we went to this school. And they had it set up an auditorium where I had Santa Claus, and this was a big school. It had like 1,200 kids, so it was huge. And we're in the auditorium. They got all the classes set up, pre-K, K, 1, 2, and they got them all set up in different areas. And the principals in there, the guidance counselor, the student coordinators, parent coordinators, and they're just looking at us to give them the okay when it's time to release the kids. So there's one group, the pre-K, and I'm looking at them, and there's this little Spanish kid, little Mexican kid in the front, and he's got fat cheeks, and he's probably 4 years old, and he keeps coming, and one of the teachers would grab him, put him back in line. Comes again. Grab him, put him back in line. Comes again. I wave to him. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Go back again. Big smile on his face. Finally, we give the signal. Go. Let's go. Release. Open the gates. And he comes walking over, walks right over to Santa Claus. Ken, so help me God, he says to him, I've been looking for you all my life. I'm telling you, I was ready to, I don't know what. I mean, I've been looking for you all my life. I guess what I'm saying is, if I ever needed confirmation that we were in the right place, giving the toys out, because you do have to make a choice, even though 7,000 toys is a lot, you still have to make a choice of where to go, and because you can't go everywhere. And that was confirmation. Thank you, God, we're in the right place. But anyway, it was another good year, seeing a lot of smile faces, a lot of beautiful kids. I'm ready to get into boxing now, UFC, whatever we're going to hit first.
One quick thing before we get into it. You're going to have to talk to your fighter, Cameron. He's been misbehaving all week. This happens every year. The kids get crazy as Christmas time gets closer. I think all the excitement has them all hyped up. So he hasn't been behaving, hasn't been listening to his mom and talking back. And, he's got the elf on the shelf that comes. You know this. And this year they have a little miniature elf that is in the mentorship program from Santa. So he's got Seamus the elf and Spike the junior assistant. And so they haven't come back in 3 days because Cameron was misbehaving. So he's writing letters every day. Seamus, I hope you can come back. I hope I didn't get Spike kicked out of the mentorship program. But sometimes this kid needs a kick in the pants. He's just, I know he can't control his enthusiasm, but we're going to have you have a talk with him, because the only thing that seems to register with him whenever I tell him if he says he doesn't want to train, I'm like, all right, let me call Teddy and see if you can take the day off. He's like, never mind, I'll train. So he may need a reminder that, you can't train and be a fighter and have no discipline and be treating people poorly.
No, listen, I'll talk to him, but we might need a reminder. I won't say you. Mm-hmm. We might need a reminder that he's just a kid. And that, you know what?
Yep.
Kids, sometimes they go off a little bit off skelter. Just a little bit. And you know what? It's not it's not bad. It's not nearly as bad as, God forbid, we went off skelter when we were young, and or maybe not quite that young, hopefully, but when we were in those in between difficult years. So we got to remind them. We got to remind ourselves too. But I will definitely talk to him, and I'll talk to him like a fighter. I'll tell him, hey, we have to. You got to be good and disciplined inside the ring, right? And he'll say yes. And he looks you right in the eyes. So that shows you that he's being taught the right way. And then I'll say, okay, but if you're not practicing that outside the ring, then you will be weak at that inside the ring. What you have to be strong at inside the ring is the same thing you have to be strong at outside the ring. Once we have that conversation, you know what? The elf will be back. You have a lot of elves.
He listens to you. I mean, when you talk to him, he genuinely, I mean, I wish he'd listen to his dad that way. But he will. Sometimes you need a coach to
of course,
rattle your cage.
UFC, let's go.
Let's go. Donald Trump bringing the enthusiasm into Vegas. Star-studded event. I was supposed to be at the event myself. I was in LA. I was going to go with my friend Jelly Roll. He got sick. I ended up flying home with him on Friday night, unfortunately. But, what a show this was. Let's jump right into it with one of the prelims. Tony Ferguson in tough with young Paddy Pimblett, the upstart. And Paddy Pimblett beat the brakes off of Tony. Tony had... unique training method. He spent a week with David Goggins going through a Navy SEAL-like hell week training. But really, I think Tony needed some MMA coaching. And to not have a strong MMA coach in your corner when you're in tough like this, I think really showed itself in this fight in particular. They really didn't have an answer for anything Paddy was doing. And it was just 3 rounds of punishment. And Paddy Pimblett gets the decision. Easy 30-27 on all 3 scorecards. Another loss for Tony. hasn't looked good recently. You know, he's tough as nails, and like you would always say, like you never know, any of these old-time guys that have been around a long time can always pull one out of the fire and shock everyone, but it wasn't to be this Saturday. How'd you like the fight? How'd you like the performance from Patty?
No, I think Patty's improving. That's where I go. He was very close to finishing Ferguson in the first round with his ground and pounding, and he was very smart. You know, he took him and dominated him on the mat, which was smart. He's very strong there, Pimblett, and he took him there. His striking has improved a little bit, Pimblett, where he was more concise, more disciplined with his approach. And his defense was a little better. He's still got to tuck that chin down. It stays up, you know, like the old timers would always say, like a lantern in a storm, where it's a target. You got to put that chin down a little bit if you're Pimblett, because it's been hit before. He's shown that he's got a good chin, but sooner or later the wrong guy will hit it. But I saw improvement. In those areas, and he is very strong on the mat. And Ferguson's old. I mean, I'm taking nothing away from Pimblett's performance, but, you know, nobody has come up with a fight plan to beat Father Time yet. And I think that's part of what's going on here with Ferguson. But at the end of the day, good performance. Pimblett needed a good performance because his last fight was tough, was close. A lot of people were starting to get a little down on him, saying he's more about being built up. You know, as far as the UFC, they're needing star power. They always have certain stars. He's one of them now. One of the, you know, been the new star for the last couple of years. People were starting to doubt his legitimacy as a fighter, or in the area of fighting, not just being a star and a promotional product. But I think he did a good job in really kind of quelling the waters, if you will, in that kind of talk, where he showed that he is a guy that's not only a fighter and a fighter to be dealt with, but a guy that's improving. He's young and he's improving. So let's go to the next one.
Yep. Next one we had, give me 1 second, Rakhmonov and Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. Man, Stephen Thompson, he's so tough. I think this might have been the first time he's ever been submitted. Rakhmonov remains undefeated, just walking through guys. He looks to be pretty much unbeatable at this weight class. These Russian guys bring the heat. What'd you think of the performance?
He's 18-0. I think he was 17-0 going in, Rakhmonov. And Thompson's 40 years old. Again, Father Time is, you know, undefeated, as I said about Ferguson. But Rakhmonov, he got the rear naked choke submission in round 2. He's a monster on the mat. What can you say? You don't need Teddy Atlas to tell you that. He won the battle of geography. I always talk about geography. Whatever your skill sets are, your job. And part of the fight, the first part of the fight, is to get to the geography that you can use your, you know, superior skills, your superior abilities, whatever they might be, whatever they've been, you know, whatever they've been developed to be. You have to get to the right place to use them. And he did that. He got the geography, got to where he could use those talents, and he dominated on the mat. At the end of the day, we'll talk about it later when we talk about the main event and Edwards, but Rakhmonov is right there. That welterweight division, we talk about the lightweight and junior welterweight division in boxing. In the welterweight division in MMA, or UFC in particular, is a monster division with a lot of monsters there. And Rakhmonov is one of those monsters that is getting himself in line to see if he could get a hold of Edwards. But there's a couple guys there looking for that chance to fight for the welterweight title. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets that next shot. Rakhmonov is definitely a guy that nobody could complain about if he got that spot. So good, again, just just a tremendous performance, showing his skills in the geography that he can best show his skills. What's the next one?
Next up, we got Alexander Pantoja gets the relatively easy win against Brandon Royval. 50-45 on 2 scorecards. One judge gave Royval one of the rounds, 49-46, but pretty much a one-sided walkover for Pantoja.
Pantoja looked tremendous his last fight against Marino, who I think is just great, and who I love. You got to love Pantoja, too. This was a little bit more difficult than maybe it looked like it was going to be at the beginning, or people thought it would be, but all these guys are monsters, all these UFC. You get again, I've said it a million times, you don't get any layups. There's no slam dunks. There's really, everybody has a chance to upset the apple cart, almost everybody in UFC. And Pantoja, he got the takedown and control position on the mat to win the first round. And at the end of the round, Royval got up, did some striking, scored a couple punches, but Pantoja took the round. Second round, Pantoja got his takedown that he wanted, position, and he got the position on the mat. But I called it a dormant position. The reason I said that, he was controlling the round and winning, but not doing a lot other than controlling, dormant. And I thought that he was. It didn't, he could have done a little more, but credit to on the mat. But credit to Royval for not allowing him to. In the striking, Pantoja landed a straight right hand on the southpaw Royval. It was a nice shot he landed. Again, great grappling, jiu-jitsu by Pantoja. Third round was a good comeback round for Royval. I thought he was striking well, and then Pantoja got him to the mat again, but he started to fatigue, and it showed. The fourth round, Pantoja, master on the mat, so strong and smart, but Royval showed great heart and really made it interesting, Ken, when he got the chance to do striking. And Pantoja seemed to be, again, starting to run on empty a little bit. It started to look like he was running on fumes going into the fifth round. But it became really interesting for a minute there. At least to me it did, because of the heart resiliency of Royval. But Pantoja behaved like the champ he is. He got it back to the mat where he's, a master, and he won the division. He won the decision. So I don't know. Was there a couple kinks in the armor? Because there's not many kinks in the armor of Pantoja. Was a couple with his gas tank running a little bit low there? Maybe, but maybe we're not giving enough credit, and I'm going to try to make sure I do give enough credit to Royval. I mean, that guy's a problem. That guy's a load to deal with, even against the really tremendous talent of Pantoja. So at the end of the day, I guess what I'm saying is Pantoja's great. I want to see more Royval. But I think to get the best of Royval, you want to see him in 5-round fights, because everyone is always talking about their favorite guy in the UFC, about this guy's got an engine, like Covington. This guy, which he didn't really show on this particular night, but he's got an engine that's unstoppable engine that never ceases. It's incredible. Well, they're going to have to start talking about that maybe a little bit with Royval. He's got that kind of engine. Next.
But to your point, we're comparing these guys against the best in the world, and we're comparing the best in the world. To think that he won 4 of the 5 rounds, I mean, yes, kink in the armor, but kink in the armor if the armor has to be flawless and perfect, and as we know, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way to win. When it comes to Covington, He's a good lesson that I refer to him sometimes when I talk to my kids about sports. It's like, you don't have to be the best, and you can't control the talent at all. But one thing that you can absolutely control is you can be the hardest hustler and trier at practice. No one can stop you from being the guy out there that wants to win the most and goes the hardest. Only you can control that. So that's the one area where you can always stand out. And Covington, to your point, didn't have his best performance. Rocky Edwards handled him, in hindsight, relatively easy. 49-46 on all three score.
Wait, do you really want to go to that fight now, though, Ken? Because we're missing one, and we can't miss this one. I will not allow us to miss this one. It only take me 2 minutes to cover it.
Which one did we miss?
Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell. We cannot miss that.
Oh, I'm sorry. The first, fair enough.
Oh, it's all right.
I missed that in the early goings. Yeah, Bryce Mitchell and Josh Emmett. I mean, my God, talk about stepping in. A perfect punch.
Well, you talk about highlight reel. Talk about Michael Jordan highlight reels. Highlight reel.
He threw a perfect punch. Emmett threw a perfect punch, and unfortunately for Mitchell, he was moving in the exact imperfect way to lean. He stepped right into it. All his weight leaned right into all Emmett's weight, and like an immovable force against a immovable object against an irresistible force. Out go the lights, and scary knockout. He looked like he was seizing up for a minute on the canvas. Really scary scene, but he looks to be all right. I saw a video he posted on Instagram saying that, obviously he regrets some of the strategy he employed, but big win for Josh Emmett and an unfortunate setback for Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to just say two quick things before I get into the... I disagree with you in this way. He didn't walk into it. He got set up into it. Emmett did a marvelous job of setting that punch up. Now, listen, punches are born, not made. I say it all the time. And you either have that kind of power or you don't. Emmett's got that kind of one-punch power. Incredible, like a Wilder with the right hand in the boxing and heavyweight division. He's got that kind of power. But I always talk about, it's one thing to have power. It's another thing to have the setup system or the delivery system to deliver that power. And to the credit of Emmett, he had the delivery system. He did a beautiful job just disguising that punch, really setting that punch up where he slipped his upper body to the left, where he took Bryce Mitchell's eyes over there with him a little bit, and then he threw the right hand from the right side. So he slips his head over to the left and throws the right hand from the right side. Beautiful setup. Distracted Mitchell just enough where he never saw it coming. Lights out. No matter how good your chin is, you get hit with that kind of punch where you don't see it coming. You don't have time to register in your brain. Get ready for this. Get ready for this earthquake. Prepare yourself. If you don't, nobody's surviving that. And that's what he did. He did it beautifully. And what also really hurt Mitchell, and that's why the timing of Emmett was so fantastic. Mitchell had started to throw a punch. And as he was throwing a punch, Emmett beat him to it. He slipped to his left, delivered the right hand from the right side, distracted Mitchell. Mitchell's throwing a punch. His focus was on that punch, not on anything Emmett was doing. I guarantee you, if you question Bryce Mitchell after the fact, he don't remember anything except I was throwing a punch. I'm sure that's the last thing that was on the computer screen before he got the lights put out. So at the end of the day, just a highlight reel, a display of why you cannot get reckless in the boxing ring or in the octagon for a split second, especially when you're in there with a guy who can punch like that. Your concentration, your focus has to be at the utmost. I'm not saying that Mitchell's wasn't. I'm saying that he ran into a dynamic puncher and a guy on this particular night who had the right delivery system for that stick of dynamite.
Yeah, great shot. All right, to main event. Colby Covington, like I said, just didn't have it this night, and Leon Edwards seems to get better with every performance. Curious to see if you think that it was a bad performance by Colby or a great performance by Rocky or a combination of both. But 49-46 on 4 of the 5 scorecards. Not the most exciting fight we've ever seen. I think that the Sean Strickland, Dricus Duplessis preview fight in the stands might have been a little bit more exciting. I say that in jest, though. You shouldn't punch anyone outside of a cage or an octagon. But plenty of fireworks.
But if you're going to do it, at least do it with manners where he did. Strickland, he said, excuse me. There was a couple of people.
Gilbert Burns' family to move.
Yeah, they was sitting in the seats where he had to climb over to get to Duplessis. So he said, excuse me, for 1 second, please. They moved over, and then he went and did what he wanted to do.
I imagine the UFC will revisit their seating policies then to put
that was hard
two
to
giant tough guys 1 seat apart from each other in the crowd.
Well, not just tough guys, but tough guys that are getting ready to fight each other.
Yeah.
I mean, you do wonder why, obviously, they were seated that way. Look, there's nobody better at promoting their brand. There's nobody better at promoting not only their brand, but the fights than UFC. They have a PhD in that. So I don't know if that was accidentally on purpose, where that seating happened to be there to maybe get something that's obviously going to make this fight even bigger now than it was before. I don't know. I would probably say Dana White wouldn't want that because there's the risk of somebody getting hurt, not only to throw off the promotion where that fight wouldn't take place, but God forbid one of the spectators got hurt, you'd have a problem with a lawsuit. So I would probably, Dana White's too smart a businessman for that. I don't think that was probably. I don't know. It's hard to explain, though.
He was he was upset at the press conference. He was definitely not happy about this. And as much as we think they shouldn't sit him next to each other, at the end of the day, you're a professional athlete, a grown man. I get that you're in a fight, but control yourself, man.
You're 100% right about that.
Fist fight in the street. You get paid to punch. You're going to get in the cage and have 25 minutes to do whatever you want to each other. Relax. Doesn't have to be bad blood. You don't have to genuinely dislike the guy.
Listen, I'll say this. I'm not standing up for anybody, but to Strickland's defense a little bit, not a lot, but because everyone's going to be on him, and I get it, but because he threw the punches, he took the initiative. But I'll say this. I know that old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I'm not sure about that all the time. I get it. I get that old saying, but Duplessis was saying some things, and I love Duplessis. I met him in person. We talked. We had a nice talk. He's not only big, he's huge, but he's not only big. I don't know how he makes that weight. And he's strong, but he's smart. He's a real, technically really sound. That's how he beat Whitaker, not just being stronger, but being so smart, so technically, rounded. But having said that, he was chattering away. He looked like he initiated the chatter. Again, it's not supposed to be a reason to go and put your hands on someone just to chatter, but we know that it can be sometimes. We're human. We're not pretending to be outside that realm of being touched by such things. So he was saying things to Strickland. You could only imagine what they were. And Strickland and him had a thing going back and forth anyway before that. So obviously that instigated it. I'm not saying it's an excuse to go climb over the steps and crack the guy, but it is part of it. It should be said. It should be said. So anyway, getting to the fight of Edwards. Look, before I even go there, I started earlier. I'll just finish on it. Rakhmonov and Bilal Muhammad are in that class, as is Usman, as is Gilbert Burns. That's a monster class. And so they're all going to be looking to see who gets the next shot at a monster champion, Edwards, who we love. He's been on our show. We love, and I love the person he is. I love the way he conducts himself, not just fights inside the ring, but the way he conducts his business, his life outside the ring or outside the octagon. I just love it. He's a guy that doesn't do any talking. It's about action for the most part. He fought, you alluded to it. It wasn't a scintillating, exciting fight, but it was a very, very efficient, productive, effective fight for Edwards. Not a barn burner, but he didn't want a barn burner because a barn burner would have served Covington. He wanted somewhere. He was in control. He's a concise sniper when it comes to striking. His technique is solid. He doesn't make any mistakes. He wanted a clean fight. He wanted Covington. If you gave him a chance going in, it would be to create chaos, where punches are coming from all over the place. Edwards didn't want that. Edwards wanted to have a vacuum. He wanted to fight inside a vacuum where he was in control, where it was about the discipline of him controlling the pace and having a better technique and having a more accurate game when it comes to striking. And he showed that. Again, very productive performance by Edwards. Covington, I said before the fight that we did a preview of him, of that fight the week before. And I said two question marks for me. How much is the layoff 1 year and 9 months of Covington not being in an octagon? How much is that going to cause a problem? And how much was he maybe affected by that punch that he got that he got hit with by Masvidal in the streets when he never expected it, never knew it was coming after the Masvidal fight where he had beaten Masvidal. They got into that thing. Masvidal, hit him with that punch, damaged him. He was hurt from that. How much did that hurt him physically or possibly even mentally to take away some of his aggression, some of his confidence? I don't know. All I know is, as the great announcers and commentators said, DC and Rogan and John Anik, all of them, that wasn't the Covington we expected. It was much more, conservative, much more controlled, much more patient, much more careful. What was it? Was it the rust? Because he got better later in the fight. Did it take 3 rounds to get rid of some of the ring rust? Or was it partly the mental thing I touched on? Or, and I'm going to lean towards this or was it Edwards with that style, with his ability, be so sharp, good counterpuncher, very, like I said, very accurate, that if you make a mistake with Edwards and the old Covington just coming in, reckless, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hurt. You're going to have a problem. So was it respect for that, keeping Covington in check a little bit, that he didn't want to walk into something? I think it was partly that, maybe partly some of the other things that I touched on. At the end of the day, Edwards controls himself, stays calm. He gets the fight that he wants in a vacuum. He created the fight that he wanted in a vacuum. Late in the fight, what was it, the 4th round, maybe Covington started doing more, going for where his strength is, the wrestling, going for takedowns, looking to change the geography around, which I thought was smart. And he did it in the 5th round too, where he could maybe get an edge on Edwards. He definitely wasn't having an edge striking, where he could take him to the mat. He did some of that. He came awake, if you will, Covington, late in the fight. Again, for a lot of people that said it was the rust, maybe they're going to say, I see the rust was starting to wear off. Whatever it was, he was better late, but it was too little too late. I thought Edwards won 4 out of the 5 rounds. The last round going to Covington. I think it was the last round. I made a check to myself, but I believe it was the last round. Yeah, that went to Covington. Just a pretty dominant performance. Other than those couple spots late for Edwards, I thought maybe the pride of Edwards got a little involved. He's a prideful guy. He's a quiet guy, where he was looking to take Covington a little bit to the mat too, going into Covington's turf, where he knows that's his strength. Maybe his pride got into it, and he wanted to beat him at his own game a little bit. I think that's a possibility because it became a little personal for Edwards. Covington is a big talker. He does it with everybody. He promotes himself. That's part of his brand. And he did a lot of people thought he crossed the lines. And he probably did, going and talking about Edwards' father in a way that he did. And Edwards was very emotional about it. It exploded at the final press conference. He was emotional after the fight talking about it. You could see he was almost tearing up. I definitely think that emotion and pride played in a little bit for Edwards to look to, as I said, go to Covington's turf a little bit more than maybe he should have, to kind of prove something to Covington because of the things I just touched on that were in the air with this fight, that aren't usually in the air with a fight. At the end of the day, Edwards is a class act. He really is. It comes across, I think, to everybody. Definitely comes across to me. And he's a solid, no frills guy. There's probably not one area that you say, oh my God, but there's a lot of areas where you say, wow, he's just solid. There's nothing he does poorly, nothing he does bad. Really, really no weaknesses. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see who Edwards fights next with those monsters. Like I said, I'll repeat their names. Rakhmonov, Muhammad, Usman, of course, would be it would be the fourth time he'd fight him. He beat him twice, lost to him once. That would be the fourth time if he did fight him. And Usman looked rejuvenated, if you will, in his last fight when he lost, but he took it on quick notice, and he gave a great performance with another monster. So Usman's right in the mix there. You can never count out Gilbert Burns in that division. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see moving forward for Edwards. But good solid fight.
Well, it'll be interesting, too, because Bilal Muhammad made weight for that, and my friend Ian Larios helped him cut the weight, and he was on weight for the fight as a backup. So, it'd be hard to skip over him. Rakhmonov did look great in the fight, but I think if you get someone, how hard it is, Teddy, cutting weight. If you go there and make that kind of commitment, I don't know if they get paid to make weight. I think it's just like, you're getting paid on the potential to get that fight. But nevertheless, will be interesting to see. One thing's for sure, whether you're cutting weight or adding weight, you should always incorporate Athletic Greens into your diet. Athletic Greens is the all-in-one green drink made from 75 whole food sourced ingredients, which is the best way to get all the vitamins and minerals you need from whole food sources. Teddy and I have been taking Athletic Greens for the last several years. I never go anywhere without it. And if you sign up today at athleticgreens.com/Atlas, they'll send you 10 free travel packs with your purchase, and the travel packs are, to me, just as important as the multi-serving bag. I take them everywhere I go. They were with me in LA. athleticgreens.com/Atlas. Use the promo code Atlas to get the 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Let's get into some boxing, Teddy. Let's start with a mega upset. Jericho O'Quinn against Peter McGrail. O'Quinn's a plus 340 favorite. He got floored twice in the fight, and in the fifth round landed a bomb of a right hand, knocked out McGrail. During the fight, the commentary reminded me of, I'm trying to remember who Mickey Ward was fighting. He was fighting somewhere, And at some point, Jim Lampley was like, you can stop the fight at any point, because it looked like Mickey was getting the crap beaten out of him. And he landed that one body shot and turned it around, ended the fight, and won. And that's what I was thinking about when I was watching this O'Quinn fight, because he was getting outclassed in every area until he threw that shot. How'd you like it?
Well, it's a reminder that when you step in that ring, you have to have full focus. I was touching on it earlier. You have to have full focus, concentration. You can't take anything for granted. I'm taking nothing away at all from what O'Quinn did. Spectacular. But McGrail took something for granted, which, again, you're not supposed to do that. He's a southpaw. He looked great. He was having it all his way. Quick feet, in and out, quick hands. Not a big puncher, really, but dominating O'Quinn. O'Quinn was coming off, I think, a knockout loss, so credit to him that he was able to exercise the demons and get in the ring and take this kind of fight after, I think it was his last fight or the fight before, whatever, but recently he got knocked out. Credit to O'Quinn, and I'm happy for him. He had been dropped in a fight.
Twice.
He'd been dropped in a fight twice. And McGrail got to the place where, being that he wasn't a puncher, he was still there in front of him. Otherwise, he probably would have got rid of him already. And he was taking O'Brien for granted. He came in with
O'Quinn.
Taking O'Quinn for granted. And McGrail came in with the jab and the straight left from a southpaw position. He'd been landing that easily all night. He threw the straight left. A little difference. Nobody pointed this out. But it landed, but it didn't land clean, because on this one, it was from a little too far away, and O'Quinn kind of pulled back on it to take something off it, where it didn't really affect him, obviously. It didn't land the way the other ones were landing. And when he did that split second after that, you have to move your head. You can't take a picture, as I always say. You know, if you're the guy delivering the punch, as McGrail was, you can't stand there. And he stood there. And as he stood there, I think he started then to throw something else on the right side. But you could say he was admiring his work. But really what he was doing was, again, he was taken for granted that there was nothing to worry about. And when you're in a ring, there's always something to worry about. You should never forget that. I want you calm. I want you cool and collected. I want you to see as much as you can see in there by being calm and relaxed. But never get comfortable to the place where you think there's no danger. You should never get to that place. And he got to that place. It doesn't happen too often, but he really did. And bang, the southpaw killer. O'Quinn threw the right hand on the southpaw, landed it flush on the button, and that was all she wrote. Just like that, from having a magnificent night, you had a terrible night. You know, from having a great dream, you went flat into a nightmare. So that was it. You never lose your focus. Well, no matter what you do in life, especially if you're doing something dangerous, do not lose your focus. And McGrail lost his focus, and because of that, he lost the fight.
Yep. Well, another Brit goes down to another Mexican in a one-sided beatdown. 23-year-old Bam Rodriguez moves to 19-0, stops Sonny Edwards in between the 9th and 10th round. Edwards' corner rightfully stopped the fight 1 second into the 10th. Two noble warriors. I like both these guys. I thought they did just enough talking to hype the fight. Beautiful scene after the fight. Bam Rodriguez brings Sonny Edwards his belt back into his locker room as Sonny's getting stitched up. They had a nice exchange, talked about potentially sparring together, helping each other get better. It was just refreshing to see two guys go to war, try to kill each other, and then recognize that this is just a professional sport. There's no genuine animosity. It doesn't have to be, at least. And another, like I said, another Brit goes down to a Mexican. It's been a theme this year. A lot of Brits losing at home to Mexicans this year. How'd you like that fight?
Well, you're trying to upset my brothers and sisters across the pond? You must have said it 5 times. I think they got it the first time.
I'm trying to light a fire under their asses.
I think they got it the first time.
It's a good rivalry.
I think they got it the first time, Ken. You didn't have to bludgeon them over the head. My British fans,
now they're definitely coming after me.
My British fans that I love over there. I mean, crumpets for you. Crumpets for you. Or I should say no crumpets for you. Yeah, listen. First of all, the corner stopped it. I don't know if they stopped it. See, I'm going to go where nobody goes.
Yeah. I think that they
I'm
asked
go
him
where
and
nobody
looked like
goes.
he might have said.
Yeah, I think Edwards stopped it. And to his credit.
I do too.
I'll tell you something. I never saw a kid more honest than him. He came out on his Facebook, whatever that is. He put out a thing out there that's out there on Twitter, on social media, where he apologized to his fans for letting them down and said, I had to think of the future. I was so beat up. I was seeing double vision. I think
he had a broken orbital bone too.
Yeah, he did. I mean, really. And he basically said, I stopped it. I hate to use the word quit with a guy like him, but he's basically saying, I told him to stop. Now, we never would have known that if he didn't say it. Never. I didn't know it. I just thought the corner stopped it. And then when I went back and looked at it in the corner, I could see him talking to the corner. And then the corner...
Yeah, you could see the corner ask him, and then the corner turns to the ref.
He's such an honest kid. What an honest fighter. What an honest kid to say that. Now, look, I'm going to fault the corner. I know they love him and everything. I'm sure they do. A corner should never let a fighter get to that point. You got a warrior in there. This kid's a warrior. He's a warrior.
That's a very good point, Teddy.
He is performing like a fighter should perform, that you pray that a fighter would perform like. Like going out on a shield. You shouldn't let him go on a shield. You should not let a fighter with that heart and fighting that way that he did, the way that you would, again, wish that a fighter would fight in that kind of situation where everything's against him and he's taking a terrible beating. You should never let him get cornered into a place where he's got to be the one to say that's enough. You should do that. That's your job to make sure he never has to do that. So that's the first thing I want to say. This was a good fight. Rodriguez, both undefeated. Rodriguez is southpaw. He was the aggressor, but then all of a sudden, Edwards started fighting with him. You could say Edwards fought a dumb fight. He fought in front of the bigger, stronger, better puncher that Rodriguez is. Edwards, you could say, didn't fight a smart fight, just fought a gallant fight, standing in front of Rodriguez, who's definitely the puncher in this fight. Edwards was 20-0 going in, 4 knockouts. Rodriguez was 18-0, 11 knockouts going in. But I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's so simple that Edwards just fought a stupid fight and a courageous fight only. I think he started off trying to use his legs and his jab, his speed, which is what got him to 20-0. But I don't think he felt like he could keep Rodriguez from coming and coming and coming unless he stood with him in spots. And then I think it's kind of one of those things where once he did that, he was too far in. It was like getting in quicksand. You couldn't get out. That he had to stand with him a little bit to kind of hold him from just walking him down and just being too aggressive for him. So he stood with him to try to get his respect, to try to, to slow him down. And then it took something out of him. And then he got trapped where he couldn't do anything else. He couldn't box and move like a Muhammad Ali when he was young for 12 rounds. And so he did things that looked stupid, which was, slug it out with a guy that's the better slugger, if you will. What do I say all the time? You don't go into a gun battle when you got a slingshot and the other guy's got a Gatling gun. And that's kind of what he did. That's kind of what he did. You know, he went into that kind of battle. And he came in second because of it. He got broken down, dismantled piece by piece as the fight. The first 4 rounds were really competitive. Great rounds. But then after the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then the final round of 9th, the high tide was coming in, as I also say. The tide was coming into the shore, and there ain't no stopping the tide. When the ocean's coming in, I don't care what kind of sandcastle you built, it's getting knocked over. It's getting knocked over. And that tide was Mr. Rodriguez. And you know what? In the future, it might not be a good idea to get into a slugfest with a fighter who's nicknamed Bam Bam. You know what I mean? Right, Ken? His nickname. Who are you fighting? I'm fighting Bam Bam. I'm gonna box. I'm gonna stay away from Bam Bam, and I'm gonna move all night long and not let Bam Bam me. And he did. He got Bam Bam. Credit to Rodriguez. Not only how strong he is and how tough he is, how reserved, and Edwards tough too, both of them. And not only that he's a better puncher, but he was prepared. His trainer did a good job preparing him with the fight plan. And I'll tell you where. 2 areas. 1, he went to the body of Edwards, which took something out of Edwards. And 2, he used his jab. He's got a long jab, and the long jab kept the boxer from boxing. It kept Edwards from pot-shotting and controlling the outside, area, which he had to control. He had to control that outside area to pot shot, move around, in and out. Rodriguez's jab kept him from doing that. It stabilized him. I think that was the difference. When that jab started hitting him, Edwards said, you know what? I can't box the way I want to. I'm going to have to fight with this guy to keep this guy from overrunning me. And he got, like I said, it got away from him. He took too much damage. He got too far in. He couldn't get out of it. And the rest is history. Rodriguez, broke him down piece by piece. And finally, in the 9th round, delivered the final punch. I think it was the 9th round, where he landed that big left hand from the southpaw position. He set it up beautifully with a jab to the body, dropped the eye level of Edwards, and then bang, big left hand up top towards the end of the round that dropped him. That was, I want to make sure I'm accurate, it was the 9th round, I believe, right? Yeah.
At the end of right as the 10th was starting, they waved it off. So I think the official score was 1 second into the 10th round.
Yeah, exactly. And again, he dropped him with that big southpaw left hand, where he put everything into it, set him up with a little jab to the body. And from the 4th round on, he just, 5th round, I would say. From the 5th round on, he just was dismantling Edwards, controlling him with the jab and just placing his shots really well to the head and body. And he also mixed in some counterpunching. He showed me a lot more than just a tough, strong guy, Rodriguez. He showed me a pretty complete fighter.
Yep. Let's move to a guy you've been super high on since he turned pro, David Morrell, that card. But I want to start with the undercard and work our way up to the main event. So let's talk first about Robert Guerrero in against Andre Berto. They fought 11 years ago. Berto hasn't fought in 5 years, and it looked like it from the fight.
That's a different card. Let's not forget. That was the Showtime card.
Oh, it's not the same card?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right.
Well, let's work our way up,
nevertheless. But let's be accurate here. That was the Showtime card, and was their final card of their 37-year history. 37 years, this was Showtime going off the air.
Well, like I said, Robert Guerrero beats Andre Berto 99-91, 98-92 on 2 of the 3 scorecards.
Yep.
Like I said, first fight in 5 years for Andre Berto. It looked like that. Other than these 2 guys getting a payday, I don't know what the purpose of this fight was. I wasn't remotely interested. It wasn't exciting at all. What'd you think?
Well, I would second that notion very, very easily, to be honest. But I'll go a little further, which I have the habit of doing. And I'll say that this was Exhibit A of why Showtime's going out of business. 37 years they're going out of business, and they're doing it because they stopped putting good fights on, or competitive fights, one-sided fights, and they allowed their head people there allowed fights to be dictated by one guy. You know, whoever, by one person. That's what most of them do. They got a promoter, and the promoter wants to, for the most part, usually put his guys that he controls with contracts in favorably to keep them going. The problem with that is that while you're doing that, you're going to get non-competitive fights. Every once in a while, you're going to get a good one, but you're going to get non-competitive fights. No different than what's going on with Top Rank when it comes to a lot of their fights. And to put this show on and to start it, or to have two 40-year-old guys, it was a rematch, but two 40-year-old guys who haven't, they fought last, I think, 11 years ago. They fought each other. Where Guerrero had won that fight, he also won this fight. But it's just unfathomable how, on your last show going off the air, you put this on. I mean, they shouldn't have been in the ring. I was worried about Berto. Thank God he's in there with another diminished guy, because he's got no legs left. He's a shot fighter, very game fighter, former world champion. Terrific. I love Berto. He was an Olympian, everything. But he shouldn't be fighting anymore. You could see his legs are gone. The only thing that saved him was Guerrero was also deteriorated to the point where the two of them really couldn't hurt each other, because it was like they were fighting on a boat, and they're wobbling around on the boat. So every time you try to hit the guy, you miss him. You try to hit him with a clean punch, you miss him. And that kind of saved them from getting hurt, especially Berto. I don't want to really beat a dead horse, but I'm gonna a little bit. What is the excuse for putting this on, especially in your fight that you're going off the air after 37 years, where you had some great fights, like Marvin Hagler and Mugabe, your first fight ever on Showtime, 37 years ago. I think that was your first fight. But to put this on, it is really proof of why you're going off the air. You just haven't been managed properly. You really haven't. And at least not recently. So I think rather than this fight, for that particular fight or slot, they should have put movies on. Old movies. There's two in particular. One would be Grudge Match with Stallone and De Niro. Do you ever see that? It was a comedy. This was a comedy. The only thing that wasn't a comedy was that they could get hurt. That's not a comedy. But putting this on, Stallone and De Niro in The Grudge, they were two, old-time fighters that was shot, and they got in the ring in late age to settle a grudge. The other one that I would possibly put in there, the other movie, would be Grumpy Old Men. That was another. What was that? Walter Matthau and I think Lemon. That would have fit in there too. Either one of them would have been better watching and safer watching than to watch this fight. At the end of the day, I don't know that I need to say anything more about it. It bothered me to obviously to watch the fight and to think that the people that get paid millions of dollars to be the head of the network or head of boxing there actually his judgment would tell him that this that this fight made sense to put on. And then the only thing that bothered me more than the fight was really when one of the commentators actually said, and I'm going to call him out. I don't care. Really, I don't know how he says it. I know he's been around forever, but he says that it was a firefight and a flashback to their fight 11 years ago. Are you kidding me? I mean, really? Are you serious? A firefight? What? Maybe if they were throwing matches at each other, maybe. You know what I mean, Ken? You know, maybe is that what he meant? Really? I get pissed off. Are you kidding me? There's shilling and there's shilling. That's absurd. That's stupid. That is just stupid. And that's where the grumpy old men come in. Because I guess I'm being a grumpy old man, and I'd rather watch that than not only watch this, but have somebody tell me it's a firefight and it's reminiscent of their first fight. You know, flashbacks.
Well, the network's going off the air.
Yeah.
I don't know why you have to shill for this fight. Just tell the truth. We can see what's going on.
I mean, that would be like comparing the Alamo to a paintball contest. Yeah, your kids go and play paintball. You know, in a paintball arena. You're not going to call that the Alamo. I mean, you're gonna. Oh my goodness, I'm getting a headache. Yeah. You're gonna call this. You're gonna call this a firefight? I don't know. Anyway,
I may be wrong here, but I think that that fight, the Berto fight, the Chris Colbert Valenzuela fight, were the supporting fights for the main event, which was David Morrell on Showtime. That's what I thought I watched, but there were so many fights on, I could be wrong. But I think all these fights were on the same cards.
No. Let's get it right. It's okay, but let's get it right.
This is what I think.
Yeah, Showtime was Berto.
Yeah, correct.
And it was also no, you're right. Valenzuela and Colbert. You're right. Valenzuela
and Morrell.
And
Morrell was the main event.
Yeah, was it Morrell? Yeah, Morrell. You're right.
Yeah. All right. No problem. Yeah. So let's move on to the fight I was dying to see: Valenzuela against Chris Colbert. I loved this fight only because this was the fight, if fans remember, that it was a very close decision. They end up giving it to Colbert 95-94 on all three scorecards. I would have bet all the tea in China after the fight that Valenzuela won. I thought he controlled the action. Nevertheless, they gave it to Colbert. Colbert sticking his tongue out after Valenzuela was clearly pissed off, and he's like, man, I won that fight. Chris Colbert, less than sportsmanlike, sticks his tongue out at him, mocks him, taunts him. So in the build-up to the fight, they're exchanging words at a press conference, and Valenzuela says, I'll bet you, I don't know who presented the bet, but they bet $50,000 that Valenzuela couldn't knock him out. Well, sure enough, Valenzuela beat the living crap out of Chris Colbert for, I believe he got the stoppage in the 6th round, beat him up for 5, finally knocked him through the ropes, like out cold, see you later. And Colbert, even after the fight, when Valenzuela couldn't have been more of a gentleman, he's like, look, the fight, there's no bet. It was childish. We shouldn't do that. We're professionals. Great fight. Thank you. I love you and your trainers. Thanks for the opportunity. And Colbert was just like, no. We're 1-1. Run it back. And all I could think was like, how much worse can someone get beaten? Usually if you're calling for a rematch, it's somewhat close. This fight wasn't even close. I loved seeing justice served. You want to treat people poorly and talk like that, you got to get in there and defend yourself. That's the beauty of fighting, and Valenzuela put it on him real good. So 5th round knockout, Valenzuela over Chris Colbert. How'd you like that fight?
It was a one-sided fight, but it had a spectacular knockout. As far as just to pick up where you started and where you just left off, as far as the behavior of the fighters, quite frankly, a lot of people have gotten to where they don't like Colbert, or they don't like someone who behaves that way. There's better ways to behave than the way he was. And look, all these kids, they're young, they make mistakes. I'm not making it right or wrong, but there's got to be some responsibility for the people around them to tell them, hey, you know what? It's not the best idea to talk this way or to act. It's really not. But unfortunately, guys like Colbert, they don't have the right people around them, where they just got people that want to go along to get paid, and they go along with them. But you know what? You wouldn't do that with your kid. I hope you wouldn't, raising a kid. Well, when you're training someone, you have the same responsibilities when you're raising a kid. You have to tell them things they don't like sometimes. Tell them things that are actually for their benefit down the road, to make them better people as well as better fighters. You have to correct them. You have to keep them in check. And otherwise, you're not doing your job the right way. And you're not really a friend. Because a friend's going to tell you something you don't want to hear sometimes to make you better. So, again, it comes down to the person, the responsibility of the person. But a lot of these kids need better people around them. Not just people that tell them, throw a left, throw a right, go to the body, do your road work, hit the bag. No, people that tell them more than that. And again, things you don't want to hear sometimes. So, I'm not defending Colbert, but I'm saying I don't think he had the right people around. And having said that, he behaved like you don't want someone to behave. The way he talked and the way he acted and all of that. And a lot of these kids think that's promoting themselves. They think that you're going to make more money if you're the bad guy. If you're the guy that's, that's got that kind of reputation, you're going to make more money. They should stop thinking that way. They really should. And just be a fighter. Just be a fighter, and you don't have to be all these other things. You really don't.
Or if you want to get out of character and you're not interested and you're looking at something after fighting, how about be funny, be an actor, be presentable? Why do you have to go down this heel role and be a villain?
And you don't have to use the words that Colbert was using in the pre-fight stuff. I would never use that word. I don't have the right to use that word. I never have... I've never been inclined to even want to hear that word that he uses. But people use it. And he's used that word thinking it's, again, he thinks it's going to give him a certain image. The only image you should worry about is the image that you believe you are. That's inside you. Don't try to be something else. Be what's inside you. Find out what's inside you, because that's what's going to show up in the ring. That's what's should be concentrated on, because that's going to show up sooner or later. That's Valenzuela. I just described Valenzuela to a T. He's not about to talk. He's not about that crap. He's not about it. And he's not a great, great, great talent. He's a tough kid that throws a lot of punches, that's very game, can punch a little bit. He's a pretty good puncher. He's a kid that is just an honest, decent kid who doesn't talk about people, doesn't care about that stuff. He just cares about trying to be as good a fighter as he can be. And he is accomplishing that mission. He really is. And he got robbed the first time he fought Colbert. Colbert was the house fighter. He got robbed against house. It happens all the time, unfortunately, in my business, in this business. But he didn't cry about it. He said that he got robbed. He came back. He got the rematch. And give credit to Colbert. He gave him the rematch. I want to give credit to Colbert. Give him credit for giving him the rematch. He came back and he took care of business. Before I go into the breakdown of the fight, which is not much, really, because it was a one-sided beatdown. It really was. The fight could have easily been stopped in the first round. Colbert took a terrible beating in the first round, where it was a 10-8, maybe even a 10-7 round. Terrible beating in the first round. Easily could have been stopped, but it wasn't. But he took a beating throughout the fight. But he showed heart. He showed heart. He tried to battle back. He was in there with the better guy, a guy that just overwhelmed him. And before I go further with this, to your point, when Colbert, after Valenzuela showed how class he is, and he is a class kid. I have to root for this kid from now on. He is a class kid. No matter what happens to him in the future, I'm rooting for him. And when he said, forget about the $50,000 bet, most people wouldn't do that. Forget about that. You don't owe me none. Just have a good life. Just take care of yourself. He was just being such a decent person. And then Colbert, as you said, Colbert didn't make himself look good by saying what he said. But let me tell you something. Here's an excuse for Colbert, and it's legitimate. He was concussed.
100%
and again, Ken,
I agree.
The fault of the corner. They shouldn't have let him go over there. They should have grabbed him and said, come here, son. Put their arm around him, gave him a kiss on the forehead, and said, son, stay here. But they should have done that a long time ago. So
That's right.
The ship has sailed on that. But they should have. But they're not that. They're not. He's got a trainer named Sosa, whatever his name. Obviously, he's not interested in being that person, because that's what he should have done. Stay here, son. And what does he do? He walks over there, makes it. Well, he looks stupid. He walks over and says, "We're 1-1 now. Let's run it back." 1-1. You just got knocked out to the point where we were scared. We were actually scared. Right. Actually,
that's a good point. He was unconscious, through the ropes on his face.
And you're going to say, run it back? Again, a lot of people are laughing at him. They are. They're out there laughing, saying, whatever. Don't laugh at him. He was concussed. He shouldn't have been even allowed to go over there and talk that way. He really shouldn't have. That was his handler's job, not to let that happen. As far as the fight, he got blitzed in the first round. Valenzuela knew, and what condition Valenzuela was in. Because I was thinking he's going to punch himself out. He didn't. I was thinking, oh my God, because he drew 1,000,000 punches in that first round trying to get rid of Colbert. And to Colbert's credit again, he survived. He showed a lot of heart. But he's a guy that was never as good as they built him up to be. Never. He was never as good as they built him up to be. I never saw it. I never saw him improve. He was too easy to find. He was one-dimensional. He was always in front of you. I just didn't see what these commentators on Showtime, when he was coming up, what they were saying. Oh, he's the next great this or that. Comparing him to Shakur Stevenson. What, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm not a great fan of Shakur Stevenson, but he's an elite fighter, and he's proven it. He's shown it by fighting those guys. He hadn't even got close to fighting anyone to show that, and they were talking like he was the future of the game, much less the division. It was embarrassing, and those commentators, how they could say that, but they said it. They said it, and it goes to another point, why they're going out of business. Because I like Al Heyman. I like the PBC, and he takes care of his fighters. I like him. And I think his idea is right, but it gets lost somewhere in the execution of it. His idea is right to take care of it, but the execution gets lost. He needs to hire a talent evaluator. I saw him put too many years into building up these kids that weren't as good as they were saying they were. Colbert is one. There was another kid, Joey Spencer. He was another one. And I'm watching them get built up, and these commentators are saying how great they are. And I'm saying to myself, as soon as he fights somebody, he's going to get destroyed. I don't see what they're saying. I understand why they're saying it, because they're shilling. But at the end of the day, it's going to come out in a wash. You can't shill forever. It's going to come out. And then you're going to look like an idiot. And you're going to have put in 2 years, 3 years, whatever, of developing a fighter that you should have been developing somebody else. That at the end of those 2-3 years, you have something on your network that is actually have a value. That's part of the reason why this guy Espinoza, who was in charge of all that, he was the wrong guy. He was the wrong guy. But look, they had a long run. I know no one else would say this. And thank God I'm not looking for a job. Thank God I ain't looking for a job. Because that's not the best way to get a job. It's not. I understand. I don't have to read a handbook on how to get a job, how not to get a job, how to get. I understand it. But what I don't understand is Al Heyman's a smart guy, been a successful guy. He's going over to Amazon now with PBC, with his guys, which good. God bless him. Boxing needs another outlet. They need another network. But he's going over there, and who did he hire to go with him? Espinosa. Are you kidding me? That's
what?
I mean, that's one guy I'm not hiring to go over to a new place.
I don't think that this.
When I was I basically got kicked. I got kicked out of this place, or I overstayed my welcome in this place, right? It didn't go good because of what I just said. So we had to find another place. I'm going to take the same guy with me to the new place. That is the reason why I got kicked out of the old place. What were you going to say, Ken? I'm sorry.
I don't know that there's a more disliked personality in the sport. I don't think, with the exception of Al Heyman, all you ever hear about Espinosa from fighters, from managers is negative. To the point where during the Mayweather Conor McGregor build-up, Conor McGregor is calling him an effing weasel to his face on stage at a press conference. Someone calls you a weasel in front of public like that, you really only have one choice. Start swinging. How much disrespect can you take? It's just... Anyway, that'll be interesting to see what happens. From what I hear, though, it's just simply a platform deal, meaning you could put the fights on our platform, but there's no compensation. But you never know how these deals work behind the scenes. But that's what I was hearing.
No, you're right. But whatever it is, you're bringing him with you? Come on. Really? You're not going to be there long. And the other thing is... When you just brought out about Espinosa not being liked by anyone, and I agree. I haven't heard one good word said about, but it comes down to one thing. You said personality, and I get it. I understand what you're saying. But for me, it's a different word. Character. He's got no character. He don't keep his word.
Yep.
He lies to people. From everything that I've witnessed, whatever. He's been very successful. He's made a lot of money. I'm sure he doesn't give two flying you-know-what about what Teddy Atlas is saying about him because, his bank account is still going to be nice and solid. Fido, to put a bow on it, he stepped back straight in the 7th round, big no-no. Again, something that he wasn't taught in the gym. He stepped straight back, and what does Valenzuela do? He does what a fighter does, a real fighter. He followed him. He's a southpaw, Valenzuela. He followed him with a right hook, and he nailed him stepping straight back with that right hook, and he knocked him cold. It was reminiscent of a punch that's still in my head, making the same mistake, but it was made by a much better fighter than Colbert. It was made by a fighter that was a champion in his own right back in the day, Donald Curry. He stepped straight back against Mike McCollum, the body snatcher, who was a great champion. He stepped straight back with his hands down. You never do it. It's a big no-no. You don't do that. And he got caught with a hook, stepping straight back. McCollum knocked him cold. This was similar to that, but a lower level of fighters.
Yep, and now getting on to the main event, a guy, like I said earlier, you've been high on this guy since he turned pro. I don't think anyone's been more supportive of his career and his potentials than you, and obviously you're not a guy that bangs a drum and makes a lot of noise, but you have definitely been on this kid for a long time. He fought, Senna Agbeko, from Ghana, but lives in Nashville, interestingly enough. The Ghana fighters are always tough and always athletic.
Listen, let me tell you one thing about Agbeko. He shouldn't have been in the ring with him. But this is what I'm going to say. A great human being. A kid that the American story comes from Africa, comes over here, doesn't have anything, nobody really giving him anything. He's going to become a fighter. He becomes a fighter. He loses a fight early in his career, builds himself back up with 5, 6, 7 straight wins, whatever it was. And then he gets back to a platform where he wins a big fight, and then he gets this fight. But he should not have been in the ring with him. But what a stellar human being. He's a winner. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of his life in boxing, where else he going. But I'm going to tell you, and you never hear Teddy Atlas say this in this kind of context, because I don't have a reason to. You will hear me say it. I'll say things that people don't like to hear if I think that there's a context for it, a reason for it. even though this kid, people say, what do we want to hear about Agbeko for? He just got blown out. I'm telling you, yeah, he got blown out, not as a human being. He got blown out as a fighter who shouldn't have been in with this special talent at that time. But this kid is a winner. I've met him. I've talked to him. He's a special human being. My money's on him. That he's gonna whether it's in boxing or somewhere else, he's gonna find his success, which he's already found as a human being. Go ahead, let's do Morrell. Morrell is a Cuban fighter that comes from that great Cuban heritage of great amateur fighters from that island, where they've developed a lot of future world champions when they come over here and they escape from the communist regime over there, where they can fight. You can't fight pro over there, obviously, but they've had the greatest amateur team over there for the last, I don't know how many years, 40 years, whatever. But Morrell was 25 years old. He was 9-0, 8 knockouts going in. And again, it was a no contest. You know it's a no contest when Morrell, when the fighter could be fighting somebody in the first round, could actually be fighting him, and as he's fighting, he's looking out and talking to somebody, having a conversation in the audience. That
oh man,
I don't like
hate
it.
When guys
no,
do
I don't
stuff
like it.
this.
But I think that this kid Morrell is not that. I really think he's a decent kid. He's a likable kid. He's a humble enough kid, even though he's so talented. It's hard to be humble when you're that talented, but he's a humble kid. He's a gracious kid. He showed me class. He showed me empathy for the opponent, the way that he treated Agbeko before and after. I think he's a decent kid. But that shows you that he's not in a fight that's going to make him any better. If you could be fighting the guy and talking to someone out there, that fight ain't making you better. Having said that, he's a guy who's won a world title, kind of like a Lomachenko, kind of like a Rigondeaux, after just a very short amount of fights. He, just like Lomachenko, just like Rigondeaux, those were special fights. I think this guy's special. He's got a lot of road to plow, but I think he's a special guy. And where it starts with his pedigree, his history from Cuba. Maybe that's part of it, that what he's learned there, what he's gone through there, how that's impacted his life. Also, the pride that these Cuban fighters take with them to be champions, to be great fighters, the amount of experience that they have, enormous amount of experience with top fighters, in the Olympics, everything else. He's had all that, and success. He's had all that. When you have all that, you have confidence. Great confidence. I see it. It shows, it shines out like a shiny moon, on one of those nights where the moon just shines in the sky. His confidence shines in that ring. That he's got what Cus used to talk about, supreme confidence. Cus told me there was 2 guys that he saw that had that. Sugar Ray Robinson, some people think the greatest fighter of all time, and Muhammad Ali. Some people think the greatest heavyweight of all time. They had it, but they were tested with great fighters. Morrell hasn't been tested with great fighters yet. We're going to find out how great he is and can be as he moves forward, fighting really much better competition than he's fought so far. But so far, so good. If he was a stock, you'd buy the stock. I'm taking 100 shares of that stock. And where I see it in his calmness, his confidence, because he's calm in an uncalm environment. He sees everything in that ring. He sees so much he could talk to someone outside the ring. And I know that had to do with the level of opponent. I understand that. But he sees things that other people don't see. He sees that only fighters like Crawford sees, where he slows things down and he doesn't miss anything. That's number 1. Confidence, number 2. And then it comes to this. Physical size and power. He is physically strong. He's a good puncher, very good puncher, and he's big. He's got a big frame, and he's long. And so he's got all the physical attributes to really be great if he's great up here. And I think he has the potential, or maybe more than the potential. I think he has the head start to be great up here already. We're just going to find out when he fights better fighters. And they're going to have to start doing it soon because he's not going to gain anything fighting this level. He's not. He's going to have to fight better guys. Now, he wants to fight better guys. Talk about that supreme confidence. He wants, thank God he's not the manager. Really. Because real fighters should not be the managers. Because they'll fight anybody. They'll fight Godzilla. Yeah, bring Godzilla on. Bring him on. Come on. After I get done with him, have King Kong in the bullpen. I want him next. That's what a fighter with a real attitude of a fighter, that's how they think. But he's talking about Benavidez. He don't need to fight Benavidez yet. Now, Benavidez don't need to fight him. I will tell you right now, if Benavidez was to fight him now, no matter how much Morrell calls him out, his manager should be arrested for malpractice. Because there's nothing from the...
I don't think there is such a thing in boxing.
There's nothing to be gained. It's business. It's like what's his name said in The Godfather. It's not personal. It's business. There's nothing to be gained. There is a business side to it. There's nothing to be gained by Benavidez, who I love. He's terrific. I want to see him fight Canelo to see who's the number one 168-pounder. Morrell wants to do that too, but he's got to fight better guys. Canelo and Benavidez have earned the right to be called the best because they fought the best so far. And now Canelo, if he wants to be the best in 168, he's got to fight Benavidez. But again, Benavidez should have no part of Morrell. Not yet. Let Morrell prove himself. Let him fight some guys and win at that level. Let him do two things. Let him not only prove himself and earn it, but let him become more known where you can make money fighting him. Right now, the reason I say that the manager for Benavidez should get arrested for malpractice if he ever even thought about fighting Morrell right now is you can't get paid with Morrell. Nobody knows him for the most part, except boxing insiders. You can't get paid. He hasn't gotten to that place yet. Let him get to that place. Right now is all risk, no reward for Benavidez. Let Morrell get better. Let him show that he belongs at that level, and let him get known.
All right, one last fight card, one last boxing match to discuss. And by the way, Morrell going into that was a minus $2,500 favor, rightfully so. By the way, if Agbeko, if he sees this, he lives in Nashville, I'd love to get in touch with him and see if there's anything that I can help him with. If anyone hears this or he sees it, reach out on Instagram. I'd love to talk to him if he's in town. Well, last fight, our good friend and former guest of the show, Jake Paul, keeps the train rolling, gets a first-round knockout over a pro boxer, 10-1, Andre August. Look, I think that there's a bunch of things I want to talk about here. First, Jake's performance, but then I want to talk to you about the manufactured record that this kid could come in, that they built him up to 10-1, and at light heavy to only have 5 knockouts in 10 wins. Your first 10, usually with a prospect that's really good at 10-0, he's got 8 or 9 knockouts because he's been put in with the right guys. So this is just an interesting phenomenon in boxing that you have a guy 10-1, comes in there, look to be scared to death from the jump. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Jake, but Andre August just didn't look like he was ready to be in there, and Jake behaved accordingly and hit him with an uppercut, knocked him clean out. What'd you think of the performance, and speak to the ability of someone to get a 10-1 record and have seemingly that little skill?
I could get you 10-1. That's all I need to tell you. All right, now, because you go out west, you go to the right places, you pay for the fights, and you build a guy's record up. Yeah, that's how it works. That's partly how it works. And you can build up anybody. You can indict a ham sandwich. You could build up a fighter to any record you want, if you know what you're doing and if you have the resources to do it and you go to the right place to do it. All right, that's enough on that.
In this kid's case, it looks like it actually paid off, because my first reaction was to say, what's even the sense of building up a kid who really isn't that good, but he got the payday against Jake?
Yeah, but the warning signs were there if you really look like I do. I look deep. I knew. I called this.
One quick thing. Hold on. One quick thing. When we were talking about this in the chat, me, you, and Rob Moore, our super producer, I said, the kid's 10-1 or something to that effect, and you immediately said Jake's gonna win by knockout. The kid's gonna get destroyed, and I was like, damn, that's a bit aggressive. The kid has 10 professional fights. Is Teddy crazy? That's a strong opinion, and exactly what you said happened. So I should have known not to even have a flicker of doubt, but you called this exactly, and we have the receipts if anyone doesn't believe us.
No, to be exact, he's got 12 fights. He's 10-1-1, and his one loss tells you everything you need to know. He got knocked out by a 3-3 opponent, okay? So his one loss, see, I look deep. His one loss, August, that is, he got knocked out by a 3-3. Look, Jake Paul is improving. He's getting calmer in his arena. Now, it's his arena now. He's become a fighter. Yeah, he has. I know a lot of people get mad at Teddy Atlas for saying, "Oh, Teddy, come on. That's blasphemous. You're saying that this YouTuber..." No, he's a fighter now. Yeah, I know he picks his spots smart and all that stuff. Who doesn't try to do that? He would be an idiot if he didn't.
The best champions in the world control their opponents if they can.
But he still gets in the cauldron, in the furnace, in that dangerous place in the ring. And he's fought athletes. I know he's fought UFC guys that were past their prime, but they're Woodley, guys like that. But these were fighters, champion, ex-champion, whatever, fighters that was their atmosphere, their environment. He went into their environment, and he fought them, and strong guys. Woodley's a strong guy. I know he's not a great striker, but a good enough striker where there was a danger. There was a certain danger there. And Jake Paul beat them. He lost his one fight to the boxer Fury, competitive. He lost, but competitive. Not that Fury's the next Jake LaMotta, but, Fury can box, even though he looked very bad in his last fight. I think there's a reason for it. I think he took that fight for granted. He thought he was just going to put pressure on the fight and win instead of boxing and using his abilities the way he should have used them. But I talked about that in a prior episode, so I won't go down that road again. But Paul has taken this sport. He won me over by taking the sport seriously, respecting the sport. That's all I ask. And getting a trainer and spending a few years learning the trade, applying the trade, and trying to become as good as he could become. And he's getting better. He didn't disrespect the sport by just jumping in there and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to bring in my 20 million followers. I'm going to make a quick buck." No, he dedicated himself to trying to actually learn the sport and be humble about it. I know he's not a humble guy. He talks and all that, but that's what he has to do in the world with the brand that he developed. He has to do that. He has to do that now. But he's been humble in a way that he knew what he didn't know, and he went about trying to learn it. And he's still trying to learn it. And he's getting better. He's getting calmer. He's gotten more comfortable in the ring. He was bouncing in and out with the jab, in and out, showing a little new dimension in that way. And I tell you what he is. He's physically strong. He's an athlete. And he can punch with the right hand. And now he added a little new repertoire, another punch to his arsenal. He before was jabbing right hand straight or loop. Now it's a right uppercut, and he threw it well. Now look, he had the right guy in front of him. He had a guy, to your point. He had a guy that fought all of his fights at 175 pounds except I think one. So he had a 20-pound advantage over a guy because Jake Paul's fought all his fights around 195. So he's 20 pounds bigger in a natural way than the guy. Okay, people say, "Oh, see, he gets an advantage. He picks on smaller guys." Did you forget about a guy named Canelo? Canelo, I know, is a great fighter. I get it. and I shouldn't put them in the same sentence in certain ways. But if you're going to go knock Paul for having an advantage and taking advantage of the advantage that he has, that he could call the shots and make guys come in to his realm that normally fight at 175 and now make them fight at 195. Guess what? He makes the money. He brings the money. Canelo does the same thing. Canelo gets every advantage. And again, he's fought better fighters. He's a champion. But he gets every advantage because he brings the money. He's the golden goose. Well, Jake Paul brings the money. So, yeah, he gets the right to call the shots. That's the way it works. So, and he's been a genius in marketing himself. So I give him credit for that. I'm never going to say he's going to be something that I just wouldn't come out of my mouth, that he's going to be a great boxer that is going to go down in the record books and shock the world as being a great. But he has a goal to be a champion. And you know what? I'm not saying he's going to be. I'm not saying he's not going to be. Because I'm not betting a guy that's been this smart, this dedicated, and planned his course of action to get to where he wants to get to so well so far. So I'm not gonna really bet with him or against him. I'm not betting against him.
The other quick thing I would add, if you go back and you look at the records of pick a fighter, pick Tank Davis, go look at his first 8 to 10 opponents. I promise you not one of them has a winning record. So you can say whatever you want.
No, they had
Jake
winning
Paul,
records. That's not true. That's not true.
Hold on.
Ken, Tank Davis he fought guys with winning records. Come on, please.
I want to look at his,
Ken.
Hold on. I'll tell you if any one of them had a
but they have winning record. Yes, and Tank Davis has fought good fighters. On the way up,
I don't disagree.
On the way up, to your point, everybody fights hand-picked opponents, well-chosen opponents. They go on a soft diet, of a liquid diet, of fighting soft as guys they can get on the way up to a certain point. Yeah, everyone does that, but Paul's no different.
But in his first 10 fights, Gervonta Davis fought one guy with a winning record. He was 47-31, and the rest of them had 4-7, 2-8, 3-9, debut, 0-4 his first guy, 4-4, the 10th guy. I'm not picking on Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, but
I'm
the
just
debut is not a losing record. But I get what you're saying.
It's the debut. He fought a guy 0-4.
No, you said he fought some guy's debut. That they were making their debut.
Two of the first four, but the first guy was 0-4.
But if they were making their debut, they weren't losing records. They hadn't lost.
Okay, that's fair.
No, I get what you're saying.
No, the point is, he's on the regular trajectory.
Wait, has he fought one guy? He didn't fight one guy in his first 10 that had a winning record? Tank? Now one guy? Oh no, you said
he had two with the debut. Hang on, I'll look real quick. Let me just tell you, 0-4. Debut, 2-3, 4-7, 1-1, 2-8, 3-9, a debut, 47-31, 4-4, 5-3, 8-1. Those were the first.
Oh, 8-1. You left out the 8-1 guy. Ken, come on.
Hold on. Hold on. I'll tell you what. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That was his 12th fight.
I'm with you. But you can't say he didn't fight anybody with a winning record. He fought a couple guys that...
On the 12th fight.
Yeah, all right. No problem. Listen, I'm not arguing with you. Everybody in my sport, in this sport, especially if they're a guy that has a future in front of them, they come out, and sometimes I don't think it's even right, but you could have guys with 200, 300 amateur fights coming out into the pros, and they're fighting the softest competition in the world for their first 7, 8, 9 fights. I don't agree with it. I think if you are that good and you had that many amateur fights, you don't have to fight guys like that. Even though you want to build up the record, you're not going to learn nothing. But I get it. It's a road well traveled in boxing. It's a road well traveled. Everyone does it. And Jake Paul, he's done what everyone's done, and you can't knock him for it. you could also...
And I definitely wasn't trying to knock Gervonta Davis. I'm just saying, like, I just picked a random name. If you look at all of them.
Well, you can't... No, I'm not...
10 fights
listen, I'm not
against
you. You can't knock Tank Davis because, A, he's I think, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world right now.
I agree 100%.
And not only
I'm not
that,
knocking him.
He's proven it. He's fought good fighters. I mean, he has fought
agree.
really...
We're on the same page there.
You look at his record of the guys he's fought. I mean, he's got a win where he destroyed Barrios, knocked him out, and Barrios has gotten a new... He's a former champion, Barrios, number one. But number two, he's moved up in weight now, and he's got like a fresh start on a new career. It's incredible. Where he beat Ugas, he went and after losing to Tank Davis, he went up to welterweight. He beat Ugas, who's a world champion and a Cuban fighter. Speaking about Cubans earlier, and an Olympian, he beats Ugas. So he's got I'm telling you, Tank Davis has nothing but a track record of beating in the last couple of years good fighters.
I completely agree. I like Tank Davis. I think he's one of the best out there in the pound for pound list. The only thing, like we said, is like if you look at a lot of these guys, their early trajectories. I'm saying the knock on Jake is that he's fighting soft opponents, and I don't think, relatively speaking, it's been that soft for a brand new guy with the 0 amateur fights.
Well, first of all, that's right.
Quite brave.
First of all, you got to put things in context. You're right. He's not a kid with 300. If you had 300 amateur fights, you win the Olympics. You shouldn't be fighting those kind of guys. But he's still a work in progress.
You know what other thing that he doesn't get credit for, Teddy? All his fights, he's the main event in a packed, sold-out arena. That's a shitload of pressure for a new guy without that experience. That experience is worth a lot to professional champion fighters. So to go out there and have that kind of expectations as opposed to making your debut and there's like 6 people in the stands, like just me and you in the crowd.
No, look, he's a good businessman. I will finish up on the analysis of the fight. It was a first-round knockout. Doesn't need a lot of analysis, but it needs a little bit. Paul got hit with 2 right hands. He led with a left hook. Nobody talked about it. He led with a left hook in front, and he got hit with a right hand from August. He took something off it. He's got good reflex. He's a good athlete, Paul. I think at the last second, he really does have good reflexes. At the last second, I think he pulled away and took something off. But it was hard to see. But he got hit with a pretty good right hand, put it that way. And it was because he was leading with a left hook in front. That's why. And August threw a counter right hand at the right time, and he landed it. And then later in the round, he got hit another right hand. This one wasn't really significant. I think the first one was a little more significant. Second one wasn't significant. But again, it was a counter right hand. He got hit. Why am I making this point? He got hit 2 right hands. Aside from the other things I said where there is something to build with Paul. He's strong. He's athletic. He punches good with the right hand. He's competitive, obviously. But he's got a good chin. I can't remember if it was the Woodley fight, but one of those fights, he got hit a good right hand. He took that well, too. He's got a good chin so far. And I know before you start going nuts, you don't have to tell Teddy that he hasn't been tested by Canelo or by the... I know that. I know that.
That's why I was getting out in front of these guys by saying he's on a pretty good trajectory.
Yeah, but he's been tested a little bit. And he showed a pretty good chin so far, or has shown a pretty good chin so far. Look, it's going to be interesting how much longer he can plow this road without stepping up the competition. He stepped it up a little with Fury again, but obviously that was his one loss. How long can he continue to travel down this road before he has to step it up again? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. He's a smart promoter. He's a smart. I had to laugh a little bit. He said, I'm taking guys with a lot more more fights than me. All right, I'm with you, Jake, but you're 9-1. You got 10 fights. You took a guy that's got 12. It's not quite that much of a difference, but I get the reason he's saying it and the right to say it. He is fighting guys that all they're doing is boxing. They might not do it at a high level, but that's all they're doing. So, and he took on, like I said earlier, his one loss. He took on a guy who's in a boxing family, who's been boxing since he's a kid. Not at a high level, obviously. Tommy Fury, I'm talking about, but still, he took on that risk, and to his credit, he handled it. He lost. He moved forward, and he's still on target to try to fulfill his mission, his goal.
That's it. Well, we're going to do a preview now of some upcoming fights, the Wilder fight and the AJ fight. But before we do, I want to remind people, please stick around. At the end of these previews, I'm going to give you the Teddy and Ken's 12 Days of Christmas Ultimate Boxing Christmas Guide. We've got some incredible gifts if you're looking for a last-minute prize for any of your loved ones or even for yourself. Stick around after that, but let's jump right into it, Teddy. For our friends at MyBookie, and if you're going to place a wager, please go to mybookie.ag, use the promo code ATLAS, and they'll give you a 50% to credit on your first deposit up to $1,000. Your deposit $2,000, they'll give you an extra $1,000. So before we get into the previews of the fight, I'm going to list I'm going to give you the odds, but we're going to come back one at a time and revisit before you give your predictions. So in the first one, we got Deontay Wilder minus 600 against Joseph Parker. Even money on the over-under, 6.5 rounds. This will be interesting. And on the AJ fight, AJ minus 400 against a plus 260 for Otto Wallin. Over-under at 10.5, slight favorite to the over, minus 190, plus 140 on the under. But let's start with Wilder. Joseph Parker, minus 600 favorite for Deontay Wilder. Seems like big odds. Joseph Parker is a very good fighter, and I think the over-under is intriguing at 6.5 rounds, even money there. What do you think? Who you like, and what are you looking for?
All right, Parker, 33-3. He has been stopped one time, 31 years old. Wilder, the best thing about Wilder is, he's got a big heart, and Parker does too, but he's got a big heart, and he's got a great right hand. It's a great eraser for a lot of mistakes he makes, and he makes a lot of mistakes. Wilder makes a lot of mistakes. He's technically not that good. But he's got a new trainer for, about a year now or 2 years that replaced Mark Breland. It was horrible way Wilder dealt with that, but we'll move past that. But it was hard. Hopefully he's become a better person since then. Hopefully. But it was terrible the way he dealt with that with Breland, who's just a nice human being, former champion himself, gold medalist from the Olympics. But he's got Malik Scott, I believe, still training him, former heavyweight prospect. And funny thing is, Wilder actually knocked out Scott, and now he's his trainer. I'm pretty sure I'm accurate about that. Look that up while I say that Malik Scott got knocked out by Wilder. Pretty sure he did. But in the meantime, I'll continue with the breakdown of the fight. Wilder, great. He's got that power. And with Malik Scott, the X factor, I think Malik Scott's trying to make him a better technical boxer. I think he is. I think I don't know if he's going to be successful with it, but I think he's on the right road to giving Wilder something he really didn't have. Better technique to go with the power. And if he does that, it could be interesting to see what we wind up with. But for this particular fight, Wilder and Parker's experienced enough to have a chance in this fight. He's a talented, good boxer, and he's got a trainer who I think is doing a great job with him, a former world champion, Andy Lee, who I think comes up with the right fight plans, and I think has also improved Parker since he's been with him. Here's the thing that bothers me about Parker. About 4 fights ago, he got stopped by Joe Joyce. The only time he's been stopped in his career. Joyce, a silver medalist from the Olympics, at the time was undefeated. Good puncher, slow, ponderous guy, but a good puncher. And Joyce stopped him. Joyce, since then, has deteriorated. He has deteriorated to where I don't even know if he's fighting anymore, but he got knocked out in his last fight by the Chinese heavyweight Zhili Zhang. Zhang beat him the first time. They fought twice. Beat him the first time and then stops him the second time in a rematch. That loss, maybe I should just go past it, but that loss to Joyce by Parker is on my mind a little bit when I want to make a case for Parker to win this fight. At the end of the day, Parker's an experienced guy, a game guy, a guy who will, along with his trainer, will rise to the occasion, be ready to give the best performance possible. I'm going to pick Wilder to win it. I think his athleticism, he's got an edge in natural athleticism, and that eraser, that right-hand eraser, and his heart. He's got great heart, Wilder, as does Parker. I think it's an interesting enough fight. I'm taking Wilder to win the fight by late round stoppage.
So you're liking the over 6.5?
I like the over, and I like Wilder. What do you have to lay to take Wilder straight up?
Minus 600, and then even money on 6.5 rounds, minus 115, over or under, your choice. Rob's going to look up what the parlay, what the odds are. If you want to take Wilder in the over, that might be a good parlay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the person that Parker is and the fighter that he is. I am. I'm a big fan. But I got to put that aside and put my best foot forward to give what I think is the right analysis for the fans out there that might want to go to my bookie and, get a couple extra bucks for the holidays. If they have those couple extra bucks to take a chance. Otherwise, you should not be doing that.
And do not bet the Christmas money, whatever you do.
No, do not do that. If you do that, there will be coal in your stocking. Yeah, I like Wilder. Wait, did you look up to see if he knocked out his trainer?
Yes, he did. First round in a 12-round fight, and that took place back in 2014, March 15, 2014, first round knockout. Wilder stops Malik Scott.
Yeah, and like I said, I think Malik Scott's on the right path to try to make him a better fighter. But go ahead.
Anthony Joshua, minus 400 over the great Otto Wallin at plus 260. I'm going to go on record right now. I like Otto Wallin in this fight. Over is plus 140. The under is minus 190, 10.5 rounds. I think after what Otto Wallin did against Tyson Fury, I think he's massively underrated. I think if it was anyone other than Tyson Fury, the fight stopped on that horrific cut that he put on him, and he looked good for a lot of the fight against Tyson Fury.
And he just coming off a big win against a former cruiserweight champion who's a slow, ponderous guy, but a good puncher, and that was in Turkey, so he had to go to foreign territory, where people didn't have his best interest in mind, and he had to win in foreign territory, in hostile territory, if you will. He's mentally fit to handle that, and I'll tell you where
very close to split decision in, like you said, in Turkey against Murat Gassiev.
Yeah, that means he won.
So to get that, it must exactly. He must have knocked him down 6 times.
He won every round. But anyway, look.
Oh, I've got the scorecards here. Hold on. 15-13 on 2 scorecards, and one guy had him losing 117-111.
Yeah, they were trying to do the number on him. But that's unfortunate, but that's our business. Thank God he got the just win. Look,
The only loss he has is the unanimous decision loss against Tyson Fury, and that fight was judged 18-10, 17-11, and 16-12. I thought it was closer, but awesome fight.
here's the thing for the breakdown on this for my bookie. We're doing it with them wanting us to do this special little breakdown. I think the trainer's come into play big here, and I'll tell you why. Joshua's, I don't know if he's in his second, third, fourth trainer. I don't know what it is. But he's been switching trainers like you'd switch running shoes.
Yep.
He switched over. He went to, want to make sure I got the right names, but let's see. Make sure I wrote down their names so I don't like to make mistakes. So he's now with a new trainer, Ben Davison, who was with Fury. That was, as far as I know, that was the first fight that Ben Davison ever trained, and now he's become like a star. But he's working with Ben Davison, I believe, for this fight, and he had just switched before that to Derek James. To have him train him, and I think he trained him for 2 fights. And now he's back with a different guy, with Davison, but which really gets strange, it's hard to follow, it's like trying to follow a soap opera, where he's going to go back to James after this fight. So I don't know what's really going on, except that he likes to change, or he's been liking to change trainers. All right, that could be good, that could be a problem. Because you're switching trainers like that, you're trying to learn new things, you're with a new philosophy, a new guy in your corner. That could. He's very experienced, Joshua. So maybe it won't bother him. But it's an X factor. And I mention it because of that. It's worth mentioning. Wallin, on the other hand, has the same trainer he's had. And just like I talked about, Joe Parker's got a former world champion fighter training him in Andy Lee. Wallin has a former world champion fighter, Joey Camacho, who I think has done a tremendous... I'm going to go further. Not only has he done a tremendous job with Wallin, I very rarely say this. I think he might be the main reason Wallin's where he is. I think that he's done such a good job with Wallin, with what he had to work with Wallin, that without Camacho, I don't think Wallin is where he is. Because Joey has made him a solid technical fighter. Wallin is not a greatly talented guy. He's talented in the way that he believes in himself, that he works hard. He's a big heavyweight, regular big size heavyweight, good size. He's talented in a way that he's ambitious, that he believes in himself. That's a talent, don't get me wrong. And he's technically solid. And I don't think there's anything he doesn't do the right way. But there's not one thing he does great. That's what I mean where he's not greatly talented. He's not a great puncher. He's not real fast. His feet aren't greatly fast. His hands aren't greatly fast, even though I'm using those words that sound a little out of sync to use them that way. But you get what I'm trying to say. But he does, I don't see too many weaknesses in him. He does a lot of things solid. And there's something to be said about a guy who does a lot of things solid, who's getting a chance of a lifetime, who's hungry as hell, who's fighting a guy in Joshua who's maybe not hungry. I'm not in his mind, so I'm not going to, or his heart. So I'm not going to say he's not hungry, even though he's made $100 million or whatever he's made. He's made a lot of money. But he doesn't have to be hungry, Joshua. Put it that way. He might still be hungry, but he doesn't have to be hungry. Wallin has to be hungry. This is his chance. This is really his chance of a lifetime. And I think him and his trainer know that, and they're gonna make the most of it. I think Joshua's the more talented guy. I think I've made that clear as far as physical talent. He's the guy who's going to be the favorite to, not only the favorite on paper, but there's no way Eddie Hearn is going over there with his cash cow without knowing that he's got it pretty much cemented that at the end of the day, unless a spaceship comes down and evacuates Joshua from the arena, Joshua's hand's going to be raised, you know? And I don't think Wallin's the big puncher to knock him out, even though Joshua, his whiskers or his chin can be a little susceptible sometimes. But I don't think Wallin's got that kind of firepower. But you never know. Big guy landing clean, you never know. Or you could just break a guy down mentally. You never know. Joshua got broke down mentally and physically by a guy named Andy Ruiz a few years ago.
That's right.
Just in case we forgot that. So, I'm going to go with a real wild pick here. I'm going to go with Wallin as a huge upset. I know that I should pick Joshua. That's the easier pick. I know if they're both standing at the end of the day that Joshua's going to get his hand raised, whether he deserves it or not. I just know it. I'm sorry for being that straightforward about things that I am and that candid about, but that's the truth. He's going to get his hand raised. I know that there's also a risk that Joshua could knock out Wallin because Joshua's the better puncher here. Joshua might land a nice, concise counterpunch, which he has the ability to do, and knock out Wallin. But I'm gonna take a shot here, and I'm gonna go with Wallin winning a decision at the end of the day. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of I'm going to back myself up in this way. I'm not sitting on the fence, but I'm going to back myself up in a way that I'm going to say that it's either going to be that or Joshua winning a controversial decision. In other words, getting a gift. But other than that, I'm going to take Wallin to earn a decision win, even though I have my doubts whether or not the judges will do the right thing. But I think Wallin will do the right thing and do enough to earn a chance to win that fight at the end of 12. What am I getting in return, Ken?
On the
fight and then on the over.
Yeah, you want me to see, Rob will pull up what the parlay is, but on AJ, you're at minus 400, and Otto Wallin is at plus 260.
Okay.
And on the over-under, you're getting plus 140, and on the under, you're laying 190, under 10.5 rounds. Yeah. Over gets you 140 back.
Good. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be smart about it if I know how to be smart in the gambling world. And I don't know if anybody does in the gambling world, to be quite frank. But I'm going to take the over by itself. I'm going to put the bigger bet on the over. And then I'm going to put a smaller bet where I'm getting the odds on my side anyway on Wallin by decision. Because I do have to fear that Joshua might wind up getting the benefit of a fight that maybe the scorecards were written before they got to Saudi Arabia. Maybe.
All right, well, if you want to take Wallin and the over, they'll give you $450 back for that wager. Lay $100, get $450 back. Easiest win of your life.
All right. I'll do that, but how about, could I take Joshua and the over? But that I wouldn't get nothing there, right?
Give me 1 second. I'm pulling that up right now.
Only
AJ
because, again, I'm not standing on the fence, people. I'm only saying
you gotta have all the information.
As a saver bet, yeah. Could I take a small parlay on Joshua and all? Either way, I like the over.
Well, first of all, if you want Wallin to win by decision,
yeah.
And it's over, the over is 10.5. If you want Wallin in the decision, they'll be generous enough to give you $525 back for your $100
Well, that's what I'm
wager.
doing then. All right, so that's my bet. That's my bet. Now, what if I take Joshua in the over?
1 second. I'm just putting that into my calculator.
Yeah,
here.
Or even say Joshua by, decision. And over.
Give me 1 second.
And over.
Even money. Joshua in the over is even money.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna put a save a bet, just to save a bet, on that. I know I got too many bets out there, but
That's all right.
But I know what I'm doing, because, or at least I think I do, because I'm taking a shot to win real money with Wallin by decision and the over.
Yeah. All right. Well, when everyone wins these bets, I want to tell you right now that if you're looking for Christmas gifts, I'm going to give you a few right here. Special Fight with Teddy Atlas Christmas gift guide. First one. I personally like a physical book, but I always buy the Audible as well, because if it's a book I like to keep it on the shelf and refer to it, but I also like to listen to them while I'm running. Atlas, From the Streets to the Ring, A Son's Struggle to Become a Man by the great Teddy Atlas, available on Amazon. You can also get a copy on Audible, like I said, if you want to listen while you're running. How about this real quick? A year subscription to Athletic Greens. athleticgreens.com/Atlas. Use the promo code. If you're a fighter or an aspiring fighter, or you have children that are fighters and you want to help them get an introduction to the fight game, go to dynamicstriking.com and look for the Teddy Atlas series. There's about, how many you got now, Teddy? 16?
18.
18 different videos on every punch in the boxing arsenal. There's the peekaboo style. It really is super cool. Videos and instructional content there if you want to get an intro to the sport, or you want to look at how Teddy would teach different punches from the master himself. Next up, boxraw.com. Go to boxraw.com and look at the 36 collection, Teddy Atlas collection, 36 minutes to make life fair. They've got everything you need to go to a boxing gym. You're not going to wear Timberlands to go play basketball. Don't wear running clothes to go box. Wear boxing apparel from Box Raw. T-shirts from the Fight with Teddy Atlas. Go to teddyatlas.com and you can get one of the two different shirts we have. Here's the one I'm wearing. It's just got the logo, the Fight with Teddy Atlas. But on the back, it's real cool. Check it out. Ugh. Can you see that?
No. Now we can. Your back is so immense. Your back is so immense that it's like a billboard. It's like a billboard.
165 pounds
like
of twisted steel. TeddyAtlas.com. Get the two. We have two different T-shirts up there. Obviously, we love them. I wear it every week. What am I forgetting, Teddy? Is there anything else on the Christmas gift guide that people should know about?
No, thank you. That was very nice of you. I'm gonna finish my thing with this. I gotta call out the promoters. I'll tell you why. Good and bad, and I'm gonna explain it real quick. Obviously, there's huge money being given out like candy by the oil barons of Saudi Arabia, and so you're having this really nice card, right? And I'm glad, I'm happy. It's good for boxing, especially we're losing Showtime, we're losing all these networks. We need something. It's good, but here's the thing that bothers me. And it could turn into a good thing. It shows you there's no excuse no more for these promoters that will not put the good fights together. I'm not saying these are the fights we want. They're not the top fights, Wallin and Joshua, Wilder, Parker. But they're good. They're good, solid. It's a start in the right direction. What I'm saying is that we haven't been getting the fights on any kind of regular basis, not even close to it, because the promoters won't put their guys in because they won't allow their guys to fight the other guy's guy because they don't control the whole promotion. So we don't get solid fights enough. Now we suddenly are. Magical. It shows you that it can happen, that these promoters will go and work together to put these kind of fights on. But it comes down to really the oldest human trait and weakness probably there is in the world. It comes down to greed. I'm sorry that I say things that straight, but it comes down to money, right? So if we learned anything, a lot of people will say that old saying, money is the root of all evil. Well, we learned something else here. that money is the one thing that can bring promoters together to give us the fights that we want. Money. And when you got a bunch of barons of oil just chucking money out, which is crazy, but chucking money out there, it shows you that these fights can easily be made. So I'm not saying that we should depend on these oil barons of Saudi Arabia to be the only impetus to get these kind of fights. What I'm saying is the fans hold these promoters' feet to the fire now and say, we don't want to hear it no more. We know you can make fights that we want. Make them. There's money out there. It might not be oil money all the time, but there's enough money. If you make the fights that we want, we will come. Kind of like that movie, Field of Dreams. Build it, they will come. The people will come, and the money will be there. So I'm just hoping that it could be something that the fans can hold the promoters' feet to the fire and continue to make these competing promoters come together for this, for the sport. For themselves, they're going to get paid plenty. It's always for that. But for the benefit of the sport needs it. The sport needs it right now. We are in trouble. Losing Showtime. We lost HBO years ago. We need to come up with a solution of why we're losing fans or networks. And the solution is not that complicated. It's to put on the fights that people want. Better fights. So maybe Rob will take this piece and make it into a clip. He does a marvelous job he puts the episode up on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. And then by Thursday, he takes a few clips. I'm sure one of the clips will be the breakdown of these fights in Saudi Arabia. But another clip could be, and I'll name it right now, how we can save boxing. How we can save boxing. How we can keep boxing from losing any more fans or any more networks. How we can get boxing back to the top of the mountain. And that's how. That's how. Anyway, that's like the late, great Jack Newfield, my friend and great, great, great writer, used to say, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Everybody Happy New Year. Well, we'll see you before the New Year. But I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Whatever your holiday is, Kwanzaa or whatever, Hanukkah, or what's the ones I'm missing? Whatever.
Kwanzaa. Festivus.
All of them. All of them.
The Festivus for the rest of us.
Everybody. I wish everybody the best of holidays. Treat each other good. Enjoy your family. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy every day of your life. You don't know. You just don't know. And we'll see you back here. Same bad time, same bad channel.
And we're going to discuss internally about what to do for next week's episode. Christmas is on Monday, which is when we typically record. So we're going to discuss how we can get you guys another episode and break down these two massive heavyweight fights from Saudi Arabia. So worst case, we'll have an episode up by Wednesday. Worst case scenario, we'll record it on Tuesday. But stay tuned. Look for our social channels. We'll post their updates. Rob's on top of everything. But everyone, please have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for all the support this year. And look forward to seeing you guys all next week. Merry Christmas.